Hello everyone, I'm Cucumber and welcome back to the Bethesda storytelling discussion, where I'll go over, in a more general sense, how I feel RPGs as a whole should address choice within their stories. Let's hit the ground running by starting with a phrase I can imagine many people who play these types of games have heard before. From Dungeons & Dragons to Fallout 4, you have been given choices on how things should play out. The fate of your party, of your character, of the world around you was on the line, and everything would change depending on what you chose. However, the line between what I'd like to call a dynamic choice and a static choice has been, as one could say, blurred. A dynamic choice is what I'd term as something that changes the world around the player. These choices could affect how one develops his particular story, thus having consequences. While on the other hand, static choices are those that have no bearing on the development of the story. Regardless of what you choose, the outcome is the same. I like to imagine this as a cake, where a dynamic choice is choosing to eat the cake or not. A story can completely change when given this option. And as with a static choice, you are told to eat the cake, but you have a decision to make here. Vanilla, chocolate, or marble. If I were to compare these to video games, whether to eat the cake or not could be aligned to, spoiler for The Last of Us, Joel saving Ellie at the end. While I know you as a player didn't get to make that choice, it follows the same formula and changed the entirety of how the storyline progressed, by halting the possibility of a cure for humanity. Joel decided he didn't want to eat the cake. And with a static choice, Fallout 4 being a prime example, which do you choose? The Brotherhood, Railroad, or Minutemen? What really solidifies this as a static choice is the fact that you do not see the effects of your decision, because they don't have any. People in the Diamond City will still worry about getting taken and being replaced by synths. Brotherhood will still occupy pre-war checkpoints. The only difference in these endings are which fast travel locations you lose after destroying each of the opposing factions. It doesn't matter what flavor you chose, you still ate the cake. When it comes to Bethesda, they want to create a set-in-stone beginning and end. What happens in the middle, or even after the end credits, does not matter, because your choices as a player are mutually exclusive from the play that has been written for you. As long as you get to certain thresholds throughout the narrative, at one point or another, the story will continue to its conclusion. Bethesda decided it would be best for their game stories to be like a racetrack, a rounding oval that you can go around and around indefinitely, yet not get anywhere. And the moment you want to make a choice, instead of turning left, you make the marvelous decision to go right. And after your remains are pulled from the inferno that was your car, you revert back to your last save and try again. Now I ask you this question: left, right, or straight? For those who chose straight, you fly out the windshield cracking your head open like an egg. The previous question applies. What I'd find to be the ideal would be comparative to a tree. You have been given good soil and a bag full of seeds. While I can concede that every tree has some similarities, such as trunks, roots, branches, and leaves, what tree you choose to grow and nurture can be very different from what I might choose. In this analogy, the soil represents the world, the setting. This is something everyone must share, therefore not a problem in the grand scheme of things. The seed represents the character. This is where you make your first choice. Who is my character? You determine the seed you want to grow. After you plant your tree, you start to grow roots. Where do you derive your initial nourishment? Where did your character come from? This is the backstory, or even the beginning of the story made by the developer. I see them as escaping Helgen, or leaving the vault. Next is the trunk. This is what I find to be the shared story amongst all characters, the main story crafted by the developer. How far you choose to follow the main narrative is up to you, and determines the height, width, or even color of your trunk. Lastly, there are the branches and the leaves, the choices you make and the results thereafter. At this point, everyone has a little variance. The shape and length of the branches, the color of the leaves, so many possibilities are out there that no true trees are the same. Choices molded your tree into what it is, and it's entirely unique. I'd like to say now that I can recognize translating something like my tree analogy to a game could possibly be much too time-consuming and difficult. Having every decision one person makes in a game contribute to the conclusion would be kind of ridiculous in this day and age. It'd be unfair to make the vanilla, chocolate, or marble cake flavored decision integral to the plot. But I'd say in response to that, it's also unfair to make those flavor choices the only decisions we as players get to make during the game. In fact, it would be better, in my opinion, to take those decisions out of the game entirely. Reshape it to follow a certain narrative at this point, because having no choice in the matter, but being told that and why would be preferable over being placed under the illusion of choice. I believe this idea is well done in games like The Witcher or Dark Souls 3, where you watch the story unfold or have to find it yourself, instead of being the conductor guiding it along the tracks. Personally, I don't see From Software gloating over the fact that you get the choice to kill either Yorm or Aldrich first. That's not the point. But as far as Bethesda seems to be concerned, that's all that matters. When coming up with my solution to the problem that is the lack of real choice in Bethesda's stories, I wanted to find a common middle ground between having most or every choice matter and having no choice really matter. Concerning Bethesda titles, I immediately imagined this: multiple main stories that run parallel to one another. Skyrim is a perfect example. In the first main story, you are the Dragonborn that has been prophesied as the end to the world leader Alduin, pretty much the main story of Skyrim as it is. Second, you are a prisoner that has escaped Helgen, duty-bound to assist the Stormcloaks Legion in overcoming the other. You climb the ranks in your respective army up to the point where you besiege Windhelm or Solitude, and unite Skyrim under one banner. During your campaign, you find out that the Dragonborn has returned, and is prospected to save the world from the dragon threat that has arisen. I think you get where I'm going with this. All I'm saying is that Bethesda needed to make each storyline within Skyrim its own. Make the Mages Guild one ending. Same with the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood. The game is called Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, not Dragonborn. In all honesty, when I imagine Dragonborn, I don't immediately think of an Argonian with a knack of pickpocketing and a proficiency in restoration magic. And I'm saying that's okay. Everyone doesn't need to be the Dragonborn, while the leader of the Companions, Guildmaster of the Thieves Guild, and Archmage of the College of Winterhold. This format would provide real weight to your character, as in reality, there's only so much one person can do at any one point. The world as I see it in RPGs at least, should not wait on you. You as the player should be obligated to keep up with the world as it turns. Now I do see that going along with this type of storytelling would be very limiting when it comes to the individual playthrough. However, it is not in any way that I see a bad thing to set limitations on what one can do in the time allotted to the player. Limitations being another video I plan on making soon enough when I get done with some others I've been writing. And when discussing the various storylines within Skyrim, they really don't need any more depth than they already have, because most of them could be considered on par with one another. That assertion holds a little less weight with the Civil War, but still, in my experience, I do not find killing Alduin any more rewarding than the Emperor. The same exact thing could be said about Fallout and its various factions. When I played through Fallout 4 and saw Bethesda's attempts at having multiple endings, it was a spit in the face. For example, I would have never conceived the Minutemen getting involved with the destruction of the Institute. All they care about are building settlements and killing raiders. A different story could have revolved around the Minutemen gaining influence over the people of the Commonwealth through helping settlements, which could have been under control by a monolith raider gang. The raiders could have taken note as you progressed through the story and would attack your settlements more and more over time to attempt at taking back the land and the people you converted to the Minutemen. That's until Garvey informs you that the people throughout the wasteland have gathered at the castle, ready to take their last stand against the giant raider gang that has been oppressing them for all these years. You would then, as a general, lead your army to this fort and attack, wiping out most of the raider menace. With their leader defeated, the raiders would scatter, attacks on settlements would slow to an occasional anomaly, and the ending slideshow would recount how your campaign against the raiders brought hope to a place where there was none, and your fight against those who oppressed the downtrodden resulted in others taking a stand against what they felt brought them the most fear: the Institute. This newfound hope initiated a massive influx of support for the Brotherhood of Steel, thus granting them enough information, resources, and manpower to destroy the Institute on their own. The Railroad was shocked at this change of heart by the people, and tried, to no avail, to stop the Brotherhood, but failed due to their insignificant size in comparison. They were crushed alongside the Institute. Now when it comes to the whole Minutemen story, the one contingency I found was the narrative established by Bethesda in the beginning of Fallout 4. But if my previous idea of your son not being father were to be taken into account, loose ends would be slim to none. What disappoints me the most is that it didn't even take me 20 minutes to think and type that down. That wraps it up for this video, guys. Thanks for a bunch for tuning in, and be sure to tell me your thoughts. And if you have any questions, quarrels, or queries, be sure to let me know. I'm Cucumber, and remember, pass the dressing.